Welcome everyone to this webinar for Golden Horse Minerals, TSX-V, GHML. So that's GHML code on the Toronto Stock Exchange venture markets. Shortly, I'll introduce Graeme Sloan, Non-Executive Chairman of Golden Horse, who'll provide an overview of the rapid evolution of the company over the past 12 to 18 months. They are now, as you will hear, one of the largest landholders in the minerals-rich Southern Cross region of Western Australia. Following the presentation, attendees will have the opportunity to ask questions directly to Graeme during a live Q&A session. So, as the presentation is occurring, think about what questions you would like asked and submit them in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. And I'll put them to Graeme during the Q&A session. Okay, let's get started. I would now like to introduce Graeme Sloan, Non-Executive Chairman of Golden Horse, who will run through a formal presentation and be on hand to answer any questions you may have at the end. Graeme, over to you.
Well, thank you, David, and thank you all for taking time to listen to the Golden Horse story. It's really quite a compelling story, and I hope to show you over this presentation that we certainly have the assets, we have the capital structure, we have the team, and we have two of the best commodities, if you like, gold and lithium, to operate in our industry. So, if you could move to slide 3 for me, please. Just on the disclaimer, please take time to have a look at that and just read it. There may be some forward-looking statements. But just why is Golden Horse such a standout amongst its peers? And quite frankly, it comes back down to, as I said, we have a massive land position in the Southern Cross region, and David mentioned that early on start. That's somewhere in the order of about 1,300 square kilometres. It covers around 100 kilometres of what is known as the Southern Cross Greenstone Unit. And that land position makes us the largest landholder in that entire area. And just for those that may not know, Southern Cross, historic production of 12 million ounces of gold. And when you compare that to, say, like Norseman has 6 million ounces, Kambalda has 15 million ounces, and Kalgoorlie 50 million ounces, you can see it's up there with the big ones. It is a massive deposit, a massive gold province. Also on that map there, you'll see those green units. That's the Yilgarn, in fact, where Southern Cross is, the Yilgarn Greenstone Unit. Southern Cross, you'll see, sits about halfway between Perth and Kalgoorlie, and I'll talk a little bit more about the infrastructure as we go forward. The team, well, look, again, many people talk about the team, of their teams, and we're no exception. But I will say that the team that we're seeing here at Golden Horse is really quite unique, and I'll expand on that a little bit further on in the presentation. Production, we will look to be in production by Q1 2025, and I can say that with some level of confidence, given, and again with a few more points as I'll raise as we go into that. But just with a gold price around $3,000 or just over $3,000 an ounce, equates to about $100 a gram. This will be the source of our funding for future exploration and our development programs that we've got planned. And on top of that, it also starts to minimise shareholder dilution. So our aim and part of our strategy is to get these open pits, small, high-grade open pits up into production very quickly and provide the cash flow we need to take us to the next level. And the reason I can say we can get into production with a great deal of confidence is because we have most of the infrastructure in place already. We have toll treating mills within trucking distance of all our property. We have power, water, rail, air, and the township of Southern Cross, which is a population of around 5,000 people. So a ready-made workforce. And we have our own mining crew up and ready to go once we pull the button and push the button on those production centres. And then, of course, as I said, we're in that sort of that we have the optionality between gold and lithium. And lithium, I'll talk about a little bit later in the presentation. but I see this as being another growing lithium or emerging lithium province in WA. It has a world-class operation already up and running, or close to up and running, and we are on that same greenstone unit. So again, both gold and lithium, two better commodities you wouldn't want to be in. Just over the page. The board of management, as I said, really quite unique, very strong, very experienced. Take, for instance, Paul Hewitt. Paul just joined the board. Paul's current chairman and CEO of Karora Resources, where he was instrumental in taking that company from $100 million market cap to a $1 billion market cap in about 3.5 years. Also, part of that team was myself as the managing director, and a number of our management team, including our COO, Josh Connor, and Travis Vernon, our geology manager. So we have this experience. We've developed exactly what we're seeing at Southern Cross with, and we did that with Karora, and there's no reason we can't do it with Golden Horse. You'll see John Lee, again, very experienced corporate director in the companies, a number of ASX listed companies, been around the game for a long time, very, very influential geologist, and great to have him on board. John Jones, I think you know, most people would know John, living legend around West Perth and in West Australian mining. And Jim Harris, just a great board man, really supportive and brings a great deal to the table. For those that may not know, my background's mining engineering. I've spent quite a lot of time through around the world, been very fortunate in that respect. As I said, my most recent role was managing director of Karora Resources, although I recently, as managing director of a company called Cali Metals, we just had a very, very successful IPO on the ASX. So, and that was in the early part of this year. So the management team, Josh Connor and Martin and Travis, bring a great deal to the company. They've done a terrific job putting together this package of ground that we now probably second to none in WA. So again, a great team, great board, and the board's enormously supportive of the management team. Over the page, thanks. Capital structure. Well, look, as David mentioned, first off, we're TSX listed. We're looking to list on the ASX mid this year, hopefully earlier, but we will be on the ASX by then. We currently have a market cap around 14 million, a EV of around 12, and we're share price of around 10 cents. So on very tightly held stock of 176 million shares. All our key appointments have been made for the ASX. We're around 85% complete in that works. We've appointed the BDO, our tax. We've also looked at our legals. We have Alan's our legals, and we've appointed our individual expert on the ITAR. So all of that's in place, all well and really ready to go. It's just a matter now of dotting a few I's and crossing the T's. Top shareholders, as we said, you've seen over there, CDS and Co. at 25%. Mostea have around 14%. Vertile Trust have 5.5%, and board of management have around 20-odd%. So a good type structure and very supportive shareholders. So over the page. Our strategy, how is this strategy, our gold and lithium strategy going to add value to shareholders? Well, quite frankly, as I said, we believe that a targeting of 1 million ounces of gold in and around the Southern Cross region within 3 to 4 years is very achievable. We have the land, we certainly have the prospects, and I've just pointed out we have the team. So we're aiming for that production on the first quarter of 25. That'll come from a series of open pits. Those are high-grade open pits. As I said, the infrastructure is pretty much in place, so minimal capex to start these projects, and we have a number of those lined up. With a few more bits of drilling, we'll bring those into resource and then into production. We were quite active, as you said, we remain active on the M&A front. You would have seen just recently we've added another tenement or another acquisition to our portfolio with Enterprise. That was really was a long drawn out process, but very worthwhile for shareholders. We see that as playing an important part in the long-term future for our gold and also lithium. And I'll talk about the lithium a bit further on. Just on the strategy around that, that Southern Cross Greenstone Belt already hosts a world-class project in Mount Holland. Those that may not know, 186 million tonne at 1.5% lithium oxide. There's not too many more that have higher grades in Australia than that, and hard rock lithium anyway, than this Mount Holland. We also had the advanced exploration project called Split Rocks, which is around 12 million tonnes at 0.7. They're just, as I'll show you a bit later on, they're just to the south of us, our tenement package, but on that same greenstone belt that I talk about. We're very much at this stage focused around putting more meat on that lithium bone. We have numerous outcropping pegmatites on there. We have any number of, I suppose, projects to look at. We've started to prioritise those projects and started based on our mapping, our pegmatite sampling, and just a review of all of the current historic database. Currently, we're looking at somewhere in the order of 9 or so targets, but that's starting to grow as the more data we pull apart. So again, we'll continue to look for M&A opportunities in that region. We think we can add to that. We've put a lot of ground into our package already. There are a couple of others that we may look at, but time will tell whether that happens or not. Over the page, if I go back to gold, on the right-hand side, you'll see that tenement position. It's a big tenement position. Don't underestimate the size of what we have there. And we've put that together in less than, or just over 12 months. And that's on the back of some, as I said, some excellent work from our Josh and the team putting that together. So the important things on that slide there is that it can, in that area and to the south of Southern Cross, there are a number of major gold mines on that, historic gold mines, but importantly, extremely high grade. You look at Copperhead, you're talking 1.5 million ounces at 3.7, Fraser's 1.2 at nearly 5 grams, Golden Pig over 5 grams and just close to 600,000 ounces. So I believe that this is another site that these things, once you get onto them, there's not a great deal of strike length in them, but they go to depth. We believe that we've got potentially a couple of those probably sitting on our tenement package, including what we're seeing is in and around the pilot. And I'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through. So again, great position to be in, a lot of ground. We cover a lot of those areas that we've mentioned on the left-hand side of the slide. Next one, please. So when we talk about this production pipeline, if you like, we have a series of these smaller, higher grade open pits. They're easy to get into. Take, for instance, that second one you can see on the screen. It's called Hakes Find. Hakes Find, that's all it is today. Literally 3 or 4 meters deep pit, been mined. But sitting underneath there's grades like 4 at 7.8 and 7 at 4. Now, to get that into production is relatively straightforward. We're not building plants. We're not building roads. We're not putting massive power structure or camps or anything like that. This is about taking these things in very quickly, monetizing those ounces in there as quick as, and then move on to the next one. And we have a series of those all lined up, including the Pilot JV, the Birthday and Hopes Hill, and a number of others sitting out there. So these could be the first. We believe Hakes could be the first, followed by Pilot, but there are a couple of others starting to come up to as we speak. So if you go over to the slide, over to the next one, please. This to me is, I think, tells a huge story. On the right-hand side of your screen, you'll see there the same tenement package I showed you previously. But down the bottom, you'll see there's the AB. This is a small area. It's about 10 kilometres in length, and we pushed that over onto a long section you can see on the left hand. So this is basically taking the slice north-south and taking a big cut down there. The couple of key important things on this. One is it's only 10 kilometres of 100 kilometres. And in that 10 kilometres, you'll see that that dashed line is literally 50 metres of drilling below the surface. And you can see all the drilling in that area, how very little it actually exceeds that 50-metre limit. And yet you see drill holes close to the surface, like 18 at 4 grams and 8 at 3 and 12 at 4, those sort of numbers at surface that have never been followed up. We pulled those out of the database, and they're the ones that we'll start to look at putting some work in very shortly. If you go deeper underneath the pilot, you can see grades that haven't been mined, nearly 27 metres at 4.5 grams, 6 metres at 8.5 grams. Those numbers are mineable grades. And when we talk about going to depth, we believe pilot has every potential to go to depth, like we're seeing at, say, Copperhead or the Frasers. Copperhead went to a depth of 670 metres. Frasers, 250 metres below the surface. So, as I said, not long strike length, but certainly go to depth. And we have a number of those projects that we can look at. So I think that slide, extremely telling is in where we are. And we're looking to put one of those along the full distance. But when you're talking about 100 kilometres, it becomes pretty difficult to show. Next slide, please. Right, lithium. Here we are. And this is really, it's a growing province. But I will point out that it already has, as I said before, a world-class mine in the Mount Holland, 186 million tonnes at 1.5, nearly 1.6%. Right, makes it one of the highest grade lithium mines in Australia. It sits on that green unit there, which is the Southern Cross Greenstone unit, and Greenstone sends all the way up through Southern Cross, way up through past our tenements, and continues on. Now, if you move north of Mount Holland, you'll see Split Rocks there, which are around 12 million tonnes at 0.7. And then there's very little work being done because it's been such a disjointed tenement holding. There's been no drilling for lithium up there, except for further north of what we have. And then it was more, let's drill gold and see what we can get for a bit of lithium, rather than a pure lithium-focused drilling program. So we've been able to do, since we've come on board, since January, right through to now, we'll look to put some more some more soil sampling and mapping onto those pegmatites. We've seen any number of pegmatites in that area in our tenement package. We will put a very extensive soil sampling program across a number of those key prospects. And if you look on the right-hand side of the page, you'll see there's 9 or so key prospects that we believe could come up trumps for us. Each of those will have a soil sampling program run over across the top of them, and we'll report back to the shareholders and obviously the ASX as soon as those results come in. And we expect the first results from the first program in the not too distant future. We'll continue with reviewing the database. We've got an extensive database. The more we dig into it, the more we find. So again, it takes time and effort, and I just compliment Travis Vernon and John Lee for digging into this and making that happen. They've done a great job to bring that forward for us, and found a number of other targets outside what you see there, both from a gold and a lithium perspective. And then we'll look to, around those, the results of that soil sample and mapping, we'll look to prioritise the drilling. And based on that, it'll based on funding, but I think somewhere closer to mid-year, we should be drilling our first hole there. Over the page, please. So where do we end up? Well, if you look at this, this is purely and simply to give you an understanding of the total number of prospects, and from greenfields right through to the development prospects that we have there. Any number of those we could look to put in more work and push forward as quicker than some of the others. One that sits out there now that's probably way down on the prospect list is a prospect called Paddocks. Paddocks is new. It's the more work we do on that, the more it looks to be quite an extensive and long a number of these sort of better looking prospects along that 5 kilometre trend. So early days for there, but certainly looking to have the size to get us up to that 1 million ounces. Over the page, please. And if I finish off, and I planned this to make it fairly quick and to ensure that we have time for questions, but if I finish off, why should we invest in Golden Horse? Again, there are not too many companies that don't have or have the land position that we have. So we certainly have that. It's a big chunk of ground. It's really a majors ground position, but we've been able to acquire it very cheaply to get to this stage now. We have, in that, we have some great assets ready to go in and take to the next level and then into production in the first quarter. And we have the team. Without a doubt, I'm fully confident both in the board and our executive team. We will target production, as I said, in the first quarter. All the infrastructure, as I said before, is in place. And we've got the best of both worlds with gold and lithium. And I know lithium is on the nose a bit at the moment, and even gold is. But when you start talking 3,000 ounces, $3,000 an ounce for gold, and I think lithium has got a real chance to start sort of bottoming out and start to see an upward trend. I don't think massively like we've seen in the past, but certainly I think it's now, I'm pretty confident of the fundamentals around the lithium. So yeah, look, a great position to be in, and quite frankly, wouldn't trade it for anything. It's a great company to be part of, lots of fun, and lots of hard work. So thank you very much for taking time to listen.
Thanks, Graeme. A great presentation and love the enthusiasm. Question. So you've been involved in the company sort of circa 12, 18 months. What was the initial attraction?
Yeah, it's good. Initially, I came forward just to have a look, David, at I was asked to come in and just put an opinion in to maybe help guide, the direction of the company. It didn't take long before the potential really started to come through. At that stage, it was only quite a small series of prospecting licenses, around 30-odd square kilometres. But it was the area. And look, quite frankly, prior to coming in, Southern Cross wasn't on my radar as being a really good gold province. But after researching and seeing the historic production that comes from there, it soon became obvious that this is a real consolidation play, and very similar to what we did at Karora. So it's the same historic gold production, the same disjointed fashion and way that the tenements were held. And so I took that view, took the learning from Karora and just applied it to Golden Horse. And since then, we've grown that land position from 30 to 1,300 square kilometres. So, and that's all happened in 12 months. So I really like the potential, David. Sorry.
I was just going to say, some would argue that being TSX listed means you're away from the glare of the investor audiences of the ASX. Was that a benefit in hindsight, that you could actually sort of diligently go away, build up the land position, build up the board, build up the management team, sort of without that glare?
Absolutely. Look, there's two answers to that. One is to say it was highly planned, David, and we've sort of looked at that and but no, it was all good fortune. It was the fact that we were on the TSX listed gave us that ability to fly under the radar. We acquired lots of ground, and I don't think people realise, and still don't realise today, just the ground position we have there and what we have built up. I doubt whether we could have done that if we were on the ASX. And in fact, we were looking to list on the ASX late last year. That was delayed because we had another couple of acquisitions that we wanted to add, and it was just going to make it too complicated. So now we'll look to mid-year for the listing.
Like you said in your presentation, Southern Cross was well known for the opportunity, but was hard to deal in because of the way the land holdings were all held by multiple partners, private, public, and a mixture of all. How hard was it to bring it all together?
Yeah, well, I know for a fact, David, there were a number of other groups or companies attempted to put this together and failed. And again, times change, and you know, sort of, you can't say that they were wrong and we were right. All I'm saying is that they couldn't get it done. We were able to get it done, and I think, and it was difficult, but we did have a lot of support from some of the locals there. We have a very good working relationship with a lot of the landowners and the owners of the tenements. In fact, some of them now are key shareholders of Golden Horse, which is great. Great for them and great for us. So difficult in a way, but in some ways even it's smoothed out because of the relationships we had, David.
Are you surprised, if you went back 12, 18 months and you now look forward to where you are you surprised that you're actually able to pull it all together?
I think so. I think, look, I joke around that we planned it all, but quite frankly, it was it took a while, and I am surprised at the fact that we're at the position where we are today. In, you know, it's just on 12 months to put this package together for the dollars we've spent is quite extraordinary, and a testament to the management team that put a lot of time and effort, led by Josh Connor, to make that happen. So yeah, look, I am surprised, and pleased, so pleased in another way.
Now, you glossed over your own history, and there's a question here in relation to it. Can you just sort of reiterate in a no doubt from you a subdued way, but you've got form in building mines and building projects. That's what you love doing.
It is, and it's there's nothing better to see. One, you can either develop a project or see people develop, and they're two of the greatest pleasures you can get. And I suppose when you get on a bit in years, it becomes even more important to see that the second one, to see people develop. So I have been fortunate to be part of some really good sort of development projects. As I said, Karora, I was managing director of Australia, so put a lot of the assets together, and that was just great to see. I mean, it's not often you can sit back and say, yeah, a company's gone from $100 million market cap, literally one asset, into a $1 billion company with 3 mines and 2 treatment plants, all in a space of just on 3 years. So there's been that, and there's been others that I've been fortunate to work with. So, and again, the board and the team have done it too, and that's the values you see that sits behind Golden Horse. I've been in companies where we've had assets, but we haven't quite had the right team to develop those assets. And it's just hard work, David, and that just doesn't happen. It's so to have this team, both from a board and executive, and these assets sitting there. Look, I'm very, very hopeful where Golden Horse is going to go from here on in.
Right, we do have time for a couple more questions that have come through. One was in relation to the proposed production timeline. You mentioned Q1. Is that full year 25 or calendar year 25?
Calendar year 25. So yeah, so it'll be the first quarter it's the full year, so first quarter in 2025. So it's and again, these I reiterate, most of the infrastructure is already in place. So when you develop these projects, people forget that it's not just the resource that you've got in the ground, but you've got to put all that infrastructure around that. That infrastructure is there. We don't build plants, we don't build roads, we don't build power, we don't need a camp. All of this, so it's essentially starting off and just doing the small pre-strip, And so we think these smaller pits, we can get actually into mining those within a couple of $1 million, and that's with some drilling and the pre-strip in there. So we're not talking big dollars, and we can generate cash very quickly because we know the plants in the areas are looking for feed, and we hope to be one of the groups that can feed them on a consistent basis.
Just on that note, you mentioned a number of mills in the vicinity. How hungry are they for feed, and are you confident you can get feed processed on good commercial terms?
Certainly one. We've already used one. We treated some low-grade stockpiles and generated a bit of cash from that early on in the piece. Did that over a couple of months, and that all worked perfectly. And the mill in question was very happy with the outcome. They got what they wanted, and we got what we wanted. The commercial terms were within our budget, and that's what we've got in the numbers that we've got, the preliminary numbers that we've worked, and it all works really well. So there, as far as ability to feed them or their ability to take our material, they have a big hungry plant, and they're building their production profile up. So there's definitely room in that plant for further feed for them.
Now, looking forward 12 months, 12, 18 months, you've had a very, very busy, you and the team, a very busy 12 to 18 months. Clearly, this is a bit of a gazing in the crystal ball, so won't hold you to it, and this isn't a projection. But what do you think the next 12 to 18 months looks like for Golden Horse?
I'm extremely hopeful of where Golden Horse will be in 12 to 18 months. I've got no doubt in my mind we'll be a producer. We'll be mining from one or a number of those smaller pits. I think we'll have built up not just our resource base, our exploration target, but we'll convert that into resources, into resources that can be published. I think we'll put a lot of meat on the lithium bone. We'll have probably announced, I think, some level of some drilling. We'll have drilled both further gold targets and further lithium targets. And look, given the consolidated position, and given the size of the company, that land position, let me tell you, it suits a company that's a mid-tier company. It's big enough and it's got enough prospects in there to support a great exploration program, and that's what we're after to do. We'll put more money into it, and I've got no doubt we're going to develop into a producing asset with a big resource base.
Now, just finally, you did mention the proposed ASX listing mid-year. You've just been through an ASX listing process successfully as the managing director of that company. How happy are you with the way the process is going, firstly, in relation to the ASX listing? But secondly, by listing on the ASX, essentially you're taking the covers back and showing everyone the size of the prize here. It's been developing slowly in the background. Are you excited about the process and bringing Golden Horse to the ASX?
Oh yeah, look, and I know our shareholders, David, have been screaming out to come over because most of our shareholders are here on the ASX. So we'll still have the TSX, we'll still be dual listed, but most of our shareholders are here on the ASX. All our assets are here in Australia, our management team. So it makes perfect sense to be here. And I think you're 100% correct. Once we're on the ASX, then it's basically game on. I think we've already seen in that Southern Cross area already some major mining houses have shown interest up there. And we were fortunate to beat them out on a couple of tenements that they applied for that we were in earlier and got granted. So we know they're interested in there. And I think the interest will only grow, and especially when we start putting a bit more meat around that lithium bone and even on the gold side as well.
Well, thanks, Graeme. That does bring to an end our webinar for Golden Horse Minerals today. There are a few questions which we will deal with offline. We have run out of time, but a great presentation, an exciting future. We look forward to watching with interest. So, Graeme, thanks for your time.
Absolute pleasure, David, and thank everyone for taking time to listen.
Now, remember, a copy of this presentation will be lodged with the TSX-V. If you'd like further information about the company, please go to the company website, www.goldenhorseminerals.com. Thank you, everyone, for your time to tune in to listen to the presentation, and to Graeme for your presentation. Thanks, everyone.